After 12 years of sacrifice, I revealed my hidden strength. What happened next is life-changing. Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. It had been 12 grueling years since her husband, Jim, a devoted veteran, passed away, leaving her alone to raise their 2 children, Emma and Jake. Each day was a battle against time and the never-ending struggle for money. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses in the morning, serving at a diner in the evenings, hoping to save enough for a brighter future, a future Jim had dreamed of. The town buzzed around her with life and laughter, yet loneliness curled around her heart as tightly as the winter wind bit at her skin. Neighbors often stopped by, a friendly smile or a pie dropped off at her doorstep, bringing warmth into her chilly home. They organized potlucks, shuffling their kids for playdates, and they knew of Sarah's struggles. They shared her burdens, lifting her spirits with small acts of kindness. Still, the shadows of her situation loomed large. The shame of being a low-income single parent whispered doubts into her mind. Hope flickered in her heart like a candle in a storm, fueled by thoughts of Emma and Jake, who deserved more than what life had served them. Each evening, she tucked them into bed, whispering, "We'll get through this together." But she knew a far more significant storm was brewing when a local corporation announced their plans to demolish her neighborhood for a new development. Panic rippled through the community. Families, friends, loved ones, all faced uncertainty. As news hit, Sarah's resolve hardened. At the town hall meeting, she nodded alongside her neighbors as fears were voiced and frustration mounted. The air buzzed with anticipation, a tide of emotion unveiled. She listened, absorbing every heartfelt plea, and it ignited something deep within her. This was at the moment she had to make a stand for her children and her community. Before she knew it, her hand was raised. She could feel every heartbeat drumming the rhythm of courage as the crowd turned their gaze to her. The anxiety fluttered in her chest like the wings of a trapped bird. The words of Jim echoed in her mind, his steadfast belief in fighting for dreams. She opened her mouth. "We can't lose our homes. We've built lives here." But like a nail being hammered down, a corporate representative shot her down, dismissing her concerns. The discontent murmured through the audience. For a fleeting moment, she felt crushed. The intensity of feeling frustration, empathy, and righteous indignation rocked her to her core. But she wouldn't let it end here. This was more than about homes, it was about dignity. Determined, she gathered her neighbors, igniting a fire that had long been smoldering. They developed strategies to protest, to rally against the corporation that threatened their very existence. Life was a delicate balance between activism and motherhood, but each moment of uncertainty was overlooked for the greater cause. They now fought together. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each protest, the stakes grew higher. Sarah battled lingering doubts, wondering if she was enough, but she couldn't back down now. Hope blossomed in the spirit of her community as they marched, hands raised, voices united. Yet, as they gained traction, complications arose. An evasive corporation with deep pockets loomed over her like a dark cloud. What would happen when Sarah faced them head-on, armed with the strength of desire and a fierce love for her children? Just when she started to gather the respect and support of her neighbors, a twist awaited her, a powerful card that could change everything, making her question if she was ready for what lay ahead. The night after the town hall meeting felt thick with tension. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, papers and flyers strewn around as she tried to formulate ideas for the upcoming protest. Emma and Jake were tucked into bed, their gentle breaths filling the silence of the house. Yet, her mind raced with fears and hopes for tomorrow. Always her silent support, a framed photo of Jim caught her eye. His warm smile felt like a hug, filled with a sense of safety. "I need you now," she whispered to the picture, feeling the heaviness settle into her gut. With every moment spent thinking about the looming fight, a resolve began to take root in her chest, a commitment to not only herself but to all her neighbors who felt powerless in the face of corporate greed. In the early light, a chill rippled through the morning air as families began gathering at the local park for the protest. The sight of her fellow neighbors, young and old, standing shoulder to shoulder gave Sarah strength. They carried signs, their faces painted with determination, and all the worries she had faded, replaced by the energy buzzing among them. She took a deep breath, stepping up to the front as her heart raced. The muffled chatter quieted, heads turning in anticipation of her words. "We may not have much," she began, her voice steadying with each syllable, "but we have each other. This is our home. These children deserve a future here." A ripple of agreements echoed from the crowd, a wave of sound that pushed her onward. The protest was more than just a stand, it was a collective voice against destruction. They marched through the town, chanting slogans and holding their signs high. Sarah felt the rhythm of unity surge inside her. The faces of Emma and Jake pushed her forward, their futures igniting the fire within, but with every step, doubts crept in. What if they weren't enough? Would the corporations simply bulldoze their dreams away? That evening, when the sun dipped low, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Sarah stood outside her modest home, looking at the vibrant colors. She closed her eyes, breathing in the hopeful scent of fresh grass mixed with the smoky aroma from nearby barbecues. The laughter of children filled her ears, affirming life in the community was still blooming. Then, a familiar voice broke through her thoughts. "Sarah, wait." It was Barbara, an older neighbor who had come to join the protest and had been a comforting presence to Sarah through the years. "I just wanted to tell you," Barbara said, her eyes sincere, "you might not realize how much you've inspired all of us. You're brave, my dear. You're leading this fight." Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes, finding strength in the acknowledgement. "Thank you, Barbara. But we need to keep pushing." They won. Stop. Nodding, Barbara took her arm, and together, they stood looking at the neighborhood. It wasn't just a collection of houses, it was their history, memories wrapped in bricks and mortar. A place where love thrived. As they recounted their stories, laughter rose, blending with the dusk. Just then, Sarah received a text. It was a news alert. A local news station had picked up the story of their protest, drawing attention to the corporation's plans. A knot tightened in her gut, mixing excitement with apprehension. They were being seen, the next step loomed closer, and while the world felt chaotic, within her community, a thread of hope wove tighter. But as the sun set, shadowed figures from the corporation appeared in the distance, observing the protest. Sarah felt her heart race once more. What did this mean? What would happen next? The fight was just beginning, and confrontations awaited. Armed with passion and an unyielding spirit, Sarah wondered if she was truly ready to face the storm ahead. Would the community be enough to shield them, or was there more they needed to uncover? The following morning, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm light over the town. Sarah awoke with a mix of determination and anxiety. She had spent the night tossing and turning, replaying the events of the protest in her mind. What had started as a small gathering had quickly become a rallying point for the community, drawing more attention than she had ever dreamed possible. As Sarah sipped her coffee, she scrolled through her phone, reading the messages from friends and neighbors. Support flooded in from all corners. "We've got your back. Let us meet to plan the next step." For a moment, she felt the swell of community spirit lift her up. But the shadow of uncertainty loomed large as she remembered the corporate representatives watching, their cold, unreadable faces etched in her memory. Later in the day, she met Barbara and a few others at the coffee shop downtown. The cozy smell of brewing coffee mingled with the rich aroma of baked goods, but even the comfort of those familiar scents couldn't ease her nerves. The group gathered around a wooden table, its worn surface telling stories of countless meetings before theirs. "We need a plan," Barbara said, breaking the silence as she stirred her coffee. "The press coverage brings us more visibility, but that also means the corporation will be watching closely. We can't let this momentum fizzle out." The others nodded, a shared understanding hanging thick in the air. "What if we organize a town hall meeting?" one of the younger neighbors suggested. "This time we could invite experts to talk about the environmental impact of what the corporation plans to do." Sarah felt a spark ignite within her. That's a brilliant idea. If we educate our community about the stakes, we can rally even more support. As they brainstormed, a fire of hope flickered brighter in Sarah's heart. They exchanged ideas, splitting up tasks, assigning roles. It wasn't just a meeting, it was a movement, a chance to take back their narrative. By the time they wrapped up, Sarah felt a surge of purpose. They would convene again in a week, but this time, the stakes felt real. As she walked home, her footsteps echoed with determination. But as she neared her house, that knot of apprehension returned. Shadows shifted ominously behind her. A group was waiting outside the corporation's representatives, flanked by security personnel. Sarah Reynolds? One of the men called, his tone dark and unyielding. We'd like to have a word with you. About your little protest. Her heart thudded. The sight of them sent chills down her spine. What did they want? What did they know? The friendly faces of her neighbors faded from her mind, replaced by the icy judgment of corporate power. Just a moment, she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Sarah knew deep down that every confrontation carried an opportunity for change, but was she ready for whatever came next? With a deep breath, she stepped forward, heart racing, unsure of how this meeting would alter the course of their fight. Would she hold her ground, or would she find herself unraveling under their gaze? The moment felt monumental, and as their eyes locked, Sarah realized this was more than a discussion, it was the tipping point of their battle. What awaited her would determine not just her fate, but that of the entire community. Was she ready to confront the challenge head-on? The truth behind the corporation's motives felt closer than ever, and Sarah braced herself for what revelations lay ahead. The fight for her neighborhood was more than just a protest, it was a battle for their lives, their futures. What secrets did the corporation harbor, and could Sarah unearth them before it was too late? The moment hung between them, heavy and static. Sarah squared her shoulders, meeting the cold stares of the corporate representatives with a mix of steely resolve and flickering doubt. The leader of the group, a tall man with sharp features and a tailored suit, stepped closer, his gaze unyielding. Sarah, he began, voice smooth like oil but laced with a predatory edge, we don't want to make this harder for you. We believe a conversation could be beneficial. For both of us. His words, meant to soothe, sent a shiver coursing through her. The air felt stale around them, thick with the tension of unspoken threats. Would they really try to persuade her to back off, or was there a darker intention behind their visit? You have a lot of people rallying behind you, he continued, glancing at the small crowd that had begun to gather across the street. But this isn't going to end well for anyone if you don't reconsider your stance. Reconsider? Sarah echoed, her voice sharper than she intended. You mean give up on the community that's been affected by your plans? People are scared. They're losing their homes. I won't let that happen. Each word felt like a brick laid firmly in place, building her defense. The man's lips curved slightly, but there was no warmth in it. You misunderstand. We're here to offer an alternative. One that's beneficial not just for us, but for you as well. Just think about it, Sarah. We could help improve your community. Sarah's heart raced. There it was, the bait. She remembered the countless stories of communities that had been promised the world, only to end up losing everything. What's the catch? She demanded, wanting more than anything to hear where this could lead. His eyes flickered, revealing the tiniest crack in his polished demeanor. A small concession on your part. Visibility. Less noise around the protest. Let us show you the benefits of cooperation. Just then, she caught sight of Barbara standing at the edge of the crowd, her face a mix of caution and curiosity. Sarah's pulse drummed in her ears. As tempting as the offer sounded, she could almost feel the weight of her neighbor's hopes resting on her shoulders. I'm not going to silence my community for a corporate smile, she said, her voice rising above the murmurs gathering around her. If you want a conversation, you'll have to do better than that. A flash of irritation crossed the man's features. Very well, but you'll come to regret this, Sarah. We're not just any corporation. We have influence. We can make your life very difficult. With that, he turned on his heel, signaling his team to follow. Anxiety tightened around Sarah's chest. They were powerful, and she'd just drawn a line in the sand. The crowd began to disperse, leaving her standing alone, the adrenaline pulsing through her veins. What just happened? Barbara asked, rushing to Sarah's side. That was intense. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. They tried to intimidate me. But I can't back down. Not now. Barbara's eyes gleamed with pride. You stood your ground. That took guts. Yet, somehow the comment didn't provide the reassurance Sarah craved. The world felt darker now, and the weight of what she had set in motion started to press down on her. Was she truly ready for the fight ahead? As they walked away, shadows still lingered in the back of her mind. She felt a flicker of doubt creeping in amidst the camaraderie she had built. What would the corporation do next? Would retaliation come? And was there something more sinister behind their plans that she had yet to uncover? With each step, the questions piled up like a looming storm cloud in her mind. The fight for her home had just begun, but she silently vowed there would be no turning back now. Sarah glanced toward the town square, her heart racing with the weight of her decision. What if she led them into the storm instead of out of it? As she held on to that flicker of hope clenched tight in her fist, a new determination burned within her. What she didn't know was that in holding firm, she was about to uncover secrets that could change everything. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the town in hues of orange and pink. Yet, for Sarah, the beauty around her felt muted, overshadowed by concern. She and Barbara walked in silence for a moment, the echoes of the corporate representatives' threat thrumming in Sarah's ears. Do you really think they'll retaliate? Barbara's voice broke the quiet, tinged with worry. I don't know, Sarah admitted, her brow furrowing. But they have resources. They could make this harder for all of us. Barbara shifted uneasily, glancing at the fading light. We need to be prepared. They won't just sit back and take our protest lightly. Sarah nodded, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that the meeting was just the beginning of a deeper conflict. There was a fire burning inside her, but with it came a nagging doubt. How far would she go to protect her community? Let us gather the others tonight, she said, not completely convinced of her own determination. We need a plan. And we need to talk about what they said. That's a good idea, Barbara replied, her voice gaining strength. As they reached Sarah's house, she took in the familiar sight: her porch, the garden she'd tended to for years, the memories embedded in every inch. But now, as she walked inside, everything felt different. The safe haven she had known seemed fragile, vulnerable to the storm brewing outside. With a deep breath, Sarah opened her laptop and began sending messages to her neighbors. Each ping of the keyboard felt more like a battle cry than an invitation. She detailed what had happened, urging them to meet. They needed unity now more than ever, a collective front against the unseen enemy. As responses trickled in, Sarah felt a reassuring warmth wash over her. One by one, her neighbors expressed their determination. They were scared, yes, but they were also fierce. And in that moment of connection, Sarah saw flickers of hope among the fear. Later that evening, the group gathered in her living room, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of lamps. The air buzzed with anxious energy as everyone settled in, exchanging worried glances. I can't believe they actually came here, Mike, a seasoned carpenter, grumbled, crossing his arms. Who do they think they are? People who don't care about us, obviously, Sarah replied, laying out the timeline of events. She watched their reactions closely, gauging when to lean in and when to give them space. We can't back down now, an elderly woman named Mary said, her voice shaking but resolute. We've fought too hard for our homes. You're right, Sarah agreed, feeling the fire ignite once more. But we need to approach this smartly. We've got to gather proof. If they're making threats, we need to document everything. The room started to fill with chatter as ideas flowed. Strategies formed like strands weaving a larger tapestry of resistance. Sarah smiled, seeing the passion reignite in her neighbor's eyes, but as the discussions deepened, her own anxiety returned, settling in her stomach. They might have rallied together, but she couldn't escape the feeling that something more dangerous lurked beneath the surface of this fight. Before long, the meeting wrapped up, and people began to leave. Barbara lingered behind, a knowing look on her face. You're leading them, you know. But are you ready for the weight that carries? More than ever, Sarah replied, though doubt crept back in. But I guess we'll find out soon enough. As she closed the door behind her friends, Sarah took a moment to breathe. Outside, the stars flickered in the night sky, a reminder that even in darkness, light persisted. But would light shine on her community as the threats loomed closer? Sarah's heart raced with the uncertainty of the days ahead. She was ready to uncover those hidden truths, but what she didn't yet understand was that the corporation had secrets of its own secrets they would fight to keep buried. The following days felt like a tightrope walk for Sarah. Each morning she woke with a mix of determination and dread. Her mind buzzed with the weight of the meetings ahead, the communal pulse of the town's anxiety thrumming beneath her skin. She could feel the stakes rising point one evening, as she stood in her kitchen, the smell of simmering stew filled the air, an anchoring comfort amid the chaos. While chopping vegetables, she thought about the upcoming town hall meeting. Most of the community would be there, ready to voice their fears, their solidarity. But what if they didn't know how to channel that energy? What if, amidst their passion, they faltered? The doorbell rang, breaking her focus. She wiped her hands on a towel and opened the door to find Barbara, her presence a calming influence. Got a minute? Barbara asked, stepping inside. Of course. What's on your mind? I was thinking, maybe we should form a committee. Like a core group to lead the effort. Not just for tonight, but for everything coming. We need structure, Barbara suggested, her forehead furrowed with concern. Sarah considered it. That's a smart idea. If we can delegate tasks, maybe we can compile evidence more effectively. Barbara nodded, enthusiasm sparking in her eyes. And it would help take the pressure off you. You've got enough weight on your shoulders. As they began brainstorming potential members, a sense of relief washed over Sarah. It felt good to lighten the load, to not shoulder it all alone. She began to see their community as a web, each person intertwined, supporting one another. But then came the unsettling thought, the corporation was also watching. A part of her worried they were one step behind all this. Do you think we should reach out to local news? Barbara asked, glancing over a list of potential committee members. Get our story out there. Maybe, Sarah replied, uncertainty creeping in. The thought of involving the media both excited and terrified her. What if they spun the story wrong? What if the backlash were worse? Then, as they planned, a knock echoed through the house. Startled, Sarah moved to answer, her heart quickening. It was Mike, looking anxious. And behind him stood James, the quiet mechanic who seldom spoke, but whose presence was a grounding force. Hey, did I hear festivities of some kind? Mike teased, but the tension in his voice betrayed him. Just planning our next moves, Sarah said, ushering them both inside. I've been hearing things, he said, lowering his voice. People are getting rattled. I overheard some folks discussing getting their property ready for sale just in case our efforts don't pan out. The weight of his words hit hard. Sailboats in a storm trying to escape, abandoning ship before the fight even began. But we can't let that happen, Sarah asserted, feeling a fire ignite. We need to reinforce that hope. We have to remind everyone that we are stronger together. They can try to scare us, but they don't own our resolve. Her voice drew attention, and a flicker of agreement shimmered in Barbara's eyes. With the group gathered, discussions deepened. Laughter and tears intertwined as they shared fears and aspirations. They dreamed of a resilient future, a community that wouldn't back down. But underlying this camaraderie was an unseen tension of feeling that danger was lurking just beyond their view. Sarah excused herself for a moment, stepping onto her porch, staring out into the dark. The stars were hidden behind clouds, a stark contrast to the warmth of her home. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket, cutting through the quiet. A message from an unknown number sent her heart racing. We know what you're planning. Stop now before it's too late. Fear gripped her, cold and suffocating. What were they capable of? What would happen next? Stepping back inside, the mood had shifted. Conversation stopped, aware that something had changed in the air. As she held her phone tight, Sarah's heart raced. Was she ready to meet the storm head-on? And while determination flooded through her veins, one question lingered. In the back of her mind, what price would they pay for their fight? The next morning, Sarah awoke with a tight knot in her stomach. Her phone was still buzzing with unread messages, a constant reminder of the looming threat. She took a deep breath, trying to will herself into a state of calm before the town hall meeting that evening. The sun filtered through the curtains, creating lazy stripes across her bedroom floor, but it couldn't penetrate the shadow of worry clouding her mind. She slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen, where the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. It was her anchor, a familiar comfort in an unpredictable storm. As she sipped her coffee, she replayed the night's meeting in her mind. The fire in her voice had surprised her. It felt like less of a call to arms and more of a plea. The community needed to grasp that they were not alone, that each voice mattered. Yet, a creeping doubt made her question whether that fire would truly ignite action or merely illuminate fears. Barbara arrived early, knocking lightly before letting herself in. "You okay?" she asked, concern etched across her face. "Just thinking," Sarah replied, offering a shaky smile. "Doesn't seem like we're just organizing a meeting anymore." "I know," Barbara said, leaning against the counter. "But we're setting a precedent. In this town, we can't let fear dictate what comes next." Before Sarah could answer, the doorbell rang again, and her heart leaped. It was Mike and James, both looking ready to face whatever came their way. They gathered at the kitchen table, tension mingling with purpose. The four of them formed their own little united front, and for the first time, Sarah felt the weight lighten, if only slightly. "We need to craft a message, something unifying," Mike proposed, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Something that resonates with everyone in the community. We need a rallying cry." "Right. Something that says we won't be intimidated," James chimed in, his usually quiet demeanor bolstered by the urgency of the moment. "What if we all share our personal stories? How this corporate threat has touched our lives? If folks can see it's personal, it might galvanize them." Barbara chimed in, "I can speak about my mother's garden. How losing that space means losing not just roots but memories. It's vital for people to connect with what we're fighting for." That was it. They were building something stronger than a mere committee. They were weaving together their personal narratives into a larger story, one that could resonate in every corner of their town. As the afternoon wore on, they spent hours discussing personal connections to the land, the community, and their shared history. Each story fueled the next, their voices rising with passion and determination. As twilight settled, Sarah took a moment to reflect on the day. When darkness had first threatened to envelop her, the weight felt insurmountable. But now, surrounded by her friends, she felt an inexplicable spark of hope, an ember waiting to catch fire. They arrived at the town hall, an assembly of concerned faces and uncertain hearts. All around, Sarah saw the town she had known and loved fill the room. She took a deep breath and moved toward the front, her heart pounding, but now for different reasons. "We're here tonight not just because we are afraid," Sarah declared, feeling the words swell within her like a cresting wave. "We're here because we believe. And together, we can create a future that we are proud to stand for." Applause broke out, rippling through the crowd. People began to rise, drawn in by her passion. For a brief moment, it seemed everyone was on the same page, lighting fires of hope within one another, but even as excitement filled the air, that pulse of anxiety still buzzed beneath the surface. Just then, a shadow moved at the back of the hall, a figure lurking against the wall. Sarah's smile faltered as she caught the glint of a familiar face. Her heart dropped. It was someone from the corporation. As she stared into the eyes of their quiet observer, a thought jolted through her. They had not just awakened hope in their town, they were stirring the corporate beast. What were they willing to risk to secure their dreams? And more importantly, how far would the others go to protect their community when dark shadows crept closer? The room's energy shifted almost imperceptibly as Sarah locked eyes with the figure in the back. The applause faded into murmurs, the crowd's collective attention drawn to the potential threat looming near. The stranger's presence felt like a cold draft in a warm room, and for a heartbeat, doubt crept back in. "Who is that?" whispered Barbara, her voice barely above a breath. "Someone from the corporation," Sarah replied, dread clawing at her throat as she tried to keep her composure. "I don't know how much they've heard, but what do we do?" Mike interrupted, scanning the room. The atmosphere hung heavy anticipation mixed with fear. "Keep going," Sarah urged, her voice firmer than she felt. "We can't let them silence us." She took a step back to the center of the stage, her heart racing not only from anxiety but also from a sense of responsibility. The crowd was debating a descent back into fear, and she wouldn't allow it. Her voice rang out, gaining momentum. "Tonight, we stand together. We're not just voices, we're faces and stories. Each of us has a reason to fight for what's right. Share your stories." More heads turned toward one another, faces brightening with newfound purpose. One elderly man, Mr. Thompson, rose unsteadily from his seat, his hands trembling as he faced the crowd. "Let me tell you about my father," he began, his voice cracking but growing steadier with each word. "He worked this land his whole life. It's not just dirt, it's home. And I can't stand by while they come to take it." As he spoke, a ripple of murmurs ran through the audience. Others began to rise one after another, each voice building on the last. Sarah felt a swell of pride within her, the community was truly awakening. It was a chorus of human connection, their fears transformed into powerful stories, but the figure at the back remained silent, an unsettling contrast to the growth of courageous voices. Sarah dared to glance back again. The stranger crossed their arms, a confident smirk on their lips, as if taunting them. That smirk ignited something deep within Sarah, a fire ignited not by fear, but by resolve. "That's right," she said, addressing the whole room as she pointed toward the figure. "They may think they own us. But we own this community. We own our stories. And we own the right to protect what we love." The room erupted in applause, fierce and resounding. Cheers of agreement echoed, and the tension morphed into something stronger: unity. For a moment, it felt like the walls might vibrate with the power of their collective spirit, yet, even through this victory, another worry tugged at her heart. What would the implications be if their stories inspired action? What risks lay ahead? The specter of the corporation clouded her thoughts. Suddenly, the shadowy figure at the back pushed off the wall and began to move towards the front of the room. A hush fell over the crowd. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears. Was this a confrontation, a warning, or worse? She locked eyes with Barbara, who nodded subtly, as if to say, "We're ready." The others stood poised, anxious, but ready to face whatever was thrown at them. Sarah squared her shoulders, determined to stand her ground. "If we want a future we can be proud of, we must be willing to defend it." The gravity of her words hung in the air as they awaited the next move. Would they press on, living their truth, or would the darkness lurking in the back of the hall extinguish their flame? The tension was palpable, and Sarah slowly felt the room shift again, but this time, it was electric with anticipation. The moment could swing in any direction, right at the edge of everything they had fought for, and as the stranger drew closer, a voice within her whispered, "It's time to find out just how far they were willing to go." The figure moved through the crowd with an unsettling grace, each step purposefully slow, maximizing the tension as they approached the stage. Sarah felt her breath hitch. She had thought their shared stories would keep the fear at bay. But now, the air buzzed thick with uncertainty. "Who do you think you are?" A powerful voice broke the silence, cracking through the oppressive weight in the room. It was Mr. Thompson, his frame rigid, but determination etched in his features. "We won't be intimidated by you or anyone from that corporation." The stranger paused, an amused smile playing on their lips. "Intimidate? Oh, no. I'm here to give you an opportunity." The words hung in the air like a discordant melody, causing a ripple of confusion among the audience. Sarah narrowed her eyes, uncertainty hardening into skepticism. "Opportunity for what?" she challenged, stepping forward with a bravado she didn't entirely feel. To silence us more effectively? The figure laughed lightly, as if Sarah's question amused them rather than posed a threat. Hardly. I'm more here for the entertainment factor. I came to see just how far you lot were willing to go. Barbara's grip on Sarah's arm tightened. This isn't a game, she whispered, a shiver running through her voice. Sarah could feel the tension coiling, like a tightly wound spring ready to snap. Isn't it? The stranger said, eyes glinting with an unsettling light. You've got your little movement, and sure, it's cute. But what's it really going to change? Look around. This place needs more than just stories. Someone in the crowd growled, what do you know about what this place needs? More than you think, the stranger shot back, the smile evaporating from their face. I know the game. I know how the corporation plays. The challenge in the air was palpable. Sarah's heart raced as she processed the man's words. What if they were right? What if all this courage and all these stories were simply a patchwork fight in an unyielding landscape? But that doubt disappeared when she caught Mr. Thompson's gaze. Resolute and fierce, he nodded at her with defiance. Go ahead, tell us what you know. The community deserves to hear it. The stranger leaned in, fingers drumming against the microphone. There are forces at play far larger than you've imagined. Stories don't change policies, power does. A hush fell over the audience, the weight of their implications settling in. This wasn't just about them anymore, it was about systems deeply rooted in greed and exploitation. Fear crawled its way back into her heart, but Sarah wouldn't let it consume her. What do you want from us? She pressed, her voice steady despite the quaking resolve growing inside. She needed to know what were they after. I want you to understand the truth, they replied, their tone shifting from mocking to sincere, eyes narrowing. Unity is not enough. But if you want to fight, you'll need allies in places you can't even fathom, the crowd murmured, and Sarah could feel the indecision ripple through the room. Some were nodding thoughtfully, swayed by the outsider's polished delivery, while others, like Mr. Thompson, were seething with indignation. The contrast was stark, one faction craving change through stories, the other realizing that bigger actions lay ahead. People will have to take risks, the stranger continued, loudly enough for everyone to hear. And sacrifices must be made. What are you willing to risk? Sarah's mind raced. Hadn't they already given so much? The years of struggle, the sleepless nights, even the unsettled peace of their small community, was it all for naught? But then conviction settled in her chest. We're willing to fight. She declared without hesitation, the words coming straight from her heart. We may be small, but together, we are strong. The applause surged again, but the atmosphere felt different, like a brewing storm. The stranger's face remained inscrutable as they looked out over the crowd. The challenge hung heavy, and Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. What lay ahead felt uncharted, daunting even. Were they ready to face alliances that might shift the balance of power? Would it cost them more than they were prepared to lose? As the stranger turned to leave, Sarah knew one thing: this was just the beginning. She locked eyes with Barbara and Mike, their expressions mirroring the thoughts racing through her mind. How far are we willing to go? The question loomed large, and as the room began to ponder their next steps, a feeling of urgency gripped Sarah. They had awoken a slumbering beast, and now it was time to transform their resolve into action. What other surprises awaited them in this fight for their home? The meeting lingered like a taut string, buzzing with possibilities. As the last of the crowd trickled out, Sarah felt the weight of those questions settle deep within her. The stakes had shifted dramatically. The stranger's chilling proclamation of sacrifice echoed in her mind. What did that mean for her and her community? Days turned into a blur of planning, strategizing, and gathering their stories, but the underlying tension was palpable. Each time Sarah's phone buzzed with another ominous message, anxiety gnawed at her resolve. She had expected the visit from the corporation. What she hadn't expected was the unsettling mix of fear and determination that pulsed through her every moment, but slowly, as her community rallied behind her, Sarah felt that fire grow brighter within. They held meetings in each other's homes, sharing dinner and dreams, piecing together a tapestry of resistance. Their stories became a lifeline that connected them, each narrative fueling the strength of the next. And each time Sarah took the floor, her voice grew steadier, stronger. One chilly evening, the town square was filled with families, friends, and allies gripping handmade signs, their faces illuminated by twinkling fairy lights. Sarah stood before them, heart racing with anticipation and purpose. It was time for the rally, time to show the corporation that they were not willing to back down. "We are here," she shouted, her voice ringing out like a clarion call, "not just to protect our homes, but to stand for who we are as a community." A wave of cheers surged back at her, and she felt an electric thrill course through her veins. As she gazed at the crowd, mothers, fathers, children, old friends with their gray hair shining in the lights, she felt the worries lift momentarily. They were all in this together. They had built something beautiful, something worth fighting for, but then the sound of an approaching vehicle interrupted the moment. The hum of engines grew louder, and a black SUV glided to a stop at the edge of the crowd. Uncertainty rippled like a shockwave, and the collective heartbeat of the community synchronized into a chorus of unease. The stranger stepped out, cold smirk etched on their face. "Did you really think this was going to end well?" They lifted a megaphone, letting out a calculated laugh that sliced through the air. "You're poking a bear, and you want to like what happens next." Before Sarah could respond, Barbara's voice cut through her thoughts. "You don't own our future. We will not be intimidated." She stepped forward, embodying the courage that had ignited in all of them. The crowd roared in support, reigniting the momentum in the air, yet, beneath the stirring emotions, Sarah found herself wrestling with the doubts that cling like shadows at twilight. In that moment, standing among her neighbors, she recalled Jim's words about fighting for the things that truly matter. In that instant, clarity hit. Sarah's heart swelled with resolve. "We are willing to fight. And we will fight for our children's future, for our history, our lives, and our community." With every word, she felt the tension shift, felt that shared fire erupt within everyone present. The connection ignited something unbreakable. They were no longer just individuals afraid of losing their homes. They were a family that refused to be erased. And as the crowd began to chant, "Home is where the heart is," it rippled through them like a wave, uniting every heartbeat in defiance. Sarah locked eyes with the stranger once more, her determination stealing the darkness from the moment. "Watch us," she said fiercely, her heart thrumming in rhythm with the chant. The specter of intimidation faded as solace took its place. No longer just the shaken single mother bearing the weight of the world, she was now a beacon of hope, a warrior for her community. With each step, they began to move as one. Together, they marched through the streets, raising their voices louder and louder until the sound of their promise reached every corner of the town. They would be heard. They would stand strong. And through it all, as the stars blinked awake above, Sarah felt an undeniable sense of hope. They crafted an ever stronger bond, an unyielding spirit ignited by sacrifice and love, ready to weather any storm. The fight was only beginning, but at long last, they started to see the light breaking through the clouds. They could stand bravely, united against the darkness, and write a new story, one that would stand the test of time. It's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to our channel and join our community to not miss the next exclusive stories that could change your life. Leave a like now to help us feed the algorithm and spread our message. Comment below with your thoughts and reactions. We want to hear your feelings about this inspiring conclusion. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second. Your voice matters.